man, I not only was it fun, but I learned some things too. So
Uh,
make
well,
me even more of a salesperson.
well, I don't know when the first time you visited, but probably 15 years ago. And the factory's so different and modernized, and it's really a state-of-the-art facility, and yet there's still a lot of hand labor that goes into it. We do, there's a lot of things that we can automate, but there's things that we can't. And we've seen the growth and the change and the modernization.
I really do need to just go there.
Yeah, you need to come
and just get that, that freshness there. I'm super excited about our first guest today for the big idea. I've known this gentleman a long time and watched his success. And in my opinion, one of the most successful people that I've actually known in the last 15 years. Our first guest is the founder and CEO of Master Spas, the largest swim spa manufacturer in the world, and portable hot tub manufacturing, making them 100% of all the products in the USA. And I can add that we're actually celebrating 25-year anniversary. Welcome, Bob.
Thank you, Dr. Gadget. Thanks for inviting me. I'm honored to be your first guest here.
Yeah, it's an exciting time, and I kind of want to really just kind of get into the Master Spa story, because the big idea is really about that big idea and when it happened and the success that goes with it. And hopefully we'll share some tips with some people and weave in and out of that success that you've actually had. But for now, why don't you just take us back to the late 1970s when it all started for you and that first job marketing hot tubs, and that ground vision that you actually had for Master Spas, because I believe it was 1996 that you started the biggest venture, but in the 70s right, when you first got your start.
Yeah, in 1979, I was in the newspaper business, and I was about to move from Philadelphia to Pittsburgh to take a job at a group of papers there. And one of my best friends, who I'd known since we were little kids, he called me up, and he and his family owned a swimming pool wholesale distribution company in Philadelphia. And he said to me, hey, Bob, we're thinking about starting a spa division and we'd like you to run it. And I just laughed. I'm like, I can't even spell spa. I don't know anything. And he said, look, you're perfect for this job because nobody knows anything about spas. And so it was really a new concept. And California was a little bit better known. And a lot of what was sold in California were hot tubs, which were old wine vats that they converted to therapy tubs. And so
really, they were actually wine vats?
They bought old wine vats and cut them in half.
I had no idea.
Yeah. And so, in fact, the hot tub line that we had, that we branded Old Philadelphia hot tubs, was made by a tank company that made wooden water tanks for cities. When you see
sure,
the skyline in New York and Philadelphia, you see
sure,
these big tanks, particularly in the 70s and 80s. And this company built those tanks, and we got them to make a miniature version for us as hot tubs and market them, and we're very successful doing that. But anyway, in 79, I transitioned from the newspaper business into the hot tub business and tried to learn as much as I could. And it wasn't very long before we were one of the leading distributors in the country. And I did that for 10 years. And one of the companies that we distributed jacuzzi products, we were their largest distributor, and we distributed products from Fort Wayne Pools, Downey Spas, and Fort Wayne was based in, obviously, Fort Wayne, Indiana. And so I had done some marketing stuff for them. And after about 10 years, we were making a private label line in Philadelphia, but we just had outgrown our ability to assemble the product. And so we ended up, I went to Fort Wayne Pools as a vice president, and we were building this private label line for the company that I'd run before. And at that point in 1988, we were transitioning from distribution to dealer direct.
Oh, okay.
As the business grew, the dealers were big enough to buy truckloads or 2 truckloads at a time. And so the distribution wasn't as necessary. And so I did that. And then Fort Wayne got bought by an equity group. And it was a really well-run company. It was a company of about 100 million in sales, including the spa division, but they made a bunch of other things. The equity group, we were going to New York City once a month, and it just wasn't any fun. It wasn't what I wanted to do. So I went to run another spa company, LA Spas, and they had a plant in Tennessee and a plant in LA. And so I moved my family there. I couldn't bring myself to move to LA because, moving from Fort Wayne to LA would have been too much of a cultural shock, but we moved to Tennessee. I was like, I can't do this to my kids.
So you left the production. What was the production schedule at that time at Fort Wayne Pools when you actually transitioned to LA?
We were building about 8,000 spas a year. So a pretty good sized company. And probably 20 million, 18 million in sales, which in those days in the spa business, that they were big numbers. But after I left, they had brought in somebody from that was really involved in the big box stores, and he thought that it would be better to sell to big box stores than it was to independent dealers. And it's a complicated product, and it was a tough product to sell at the home centers, and it kind of backfired on them. And so I was at a show, a trade show in Vegas, and I ran into one of the vice presidents from Fort Wayne Pools, and he told me that they were going to sell the spa division because it was such a disaster, and they were down to building only a handful of spas a day. And so I went in with a friend of mine, and we ended up buying the business really at a fire sale. We bought the building, and
that was about around 1996, right?
That was 1996. That was February of 1996.
So yeah, right in there, was that a moment where, well, I actually have 2 questions. One, was that a big moment for you when you thought, one, they realized how important you were, and then 2, you're walking into, a challenge, for lack of better description, of taking something that you had in essence built, right, and then coming back and saying, "I'll start over." So I guess that was my first question, and the second question would be, like, what was the toughest moment of that?
Well, about 6 months before this came up, I had said to my wife, Sherry, because almost everything that I'd done, because I was in the spa business, had either been a startup or a turnaround. And I've been really successful. The companies that I was at, we've done really well. I was fortunate. And I said to Sherry, I can't do another startup, and I can't do another turnaround. I said, it just takes too much effort. I can't do it. I'm getting old. I was 44 or something at the time.
Oh yeah, really old.
Yeah, so I was ancient. So I was in Fort Wayne, and I'm staying at a hotel after I met with the CEO of Fort Wayne Pools, who really was a mentor to me. His name is Rick Garten, and he was really a really gifted leader, and I learned a lot from him. And he was running the company, but the equity group really wouldn't let him run it, and he ended up buying it back at a bargain and made a bunch of money again on the business. But they were desperate to get rid of the spa business and the 100,000 square foot building that they had. So I'm talking to my wife, and I said, okay, what do you think? This is obviously a challenge, because it's really it's just about a startup. It was like, they don't really have any business left. They have a building, they have some molds, but it's going to be a difficult thing. And she said, if you want to do it, I'm 100% behind you, but I just want to know what happened to the guy that said, I can't do another startup and I can't do another. and I said, I paused for a second and I'm like, that was then, this is now, I'm ready to go. And,
That's
there was so much energy from this. And one of the really fortunate things was there was a couple that, a guy that had come to work at LA Spas. He was replacing one of the general managers in Tennessee. And Sherry and I met them. They were originally from Southern California. And, within a half hour, I was like, this guy is going to be perfect here. But his wife and my wife got along great. And so they had just moved to Tennessee, like in November of '95. And so that January of '96, I went to tell the owner of the company, LA Spas, that I was leaving, but he wasn't there. And we were at a show in Atlantic City. And so this friend that had just started working at LA Spas, Terry Valmasoy, I was feeling so guilty because he just moved out here and now I'm abandoning him. And I told him, I said, look, I need to come up to your room and I got to talk. And he was like, why so serious? Is something wrong? And I said, oh, I'll talk about when I get there. So I told him that I had this opportunity to leave and that, I was sorry that, I was leaving him behind. And he was so enthusiastic. He was like, that's great. I think that's awesome. Is there a place there for me? And I was like, well, if you're willing to take a pay cut, I said, because it's really a startup. And so he calls his wife and he goes, I got good news. We're going to move to Fort Wayne with Bob and Sherry. And his wife was like, that's not good news. I haven't even finished unpacking. We're going to move again, So so I said to him, look, I don't have the deal put together yet. So don't quit your job because I don't want both of us to be unemployed. And so we got down. I went at the end of January. We finally had everything laid out. And this equity group had all these lawyers in New York City and lawyers for their bankers and all this stuff. And so we were meeting at Fort Wayne Pool's lawyer in downtown Fort Wayne at 2:00. And we get in there and they have the lawyers on the phone from New York, and they're like, we're not happy with this agreement and we want to change it. And so we were negotiating. I had my lawyer there and we were negotiating, from 2:00 to about 7:00. And we broke for dinner and I called Terry and I said, look, this is going sideways. I don't think we're going to be able to put this together, but maybe. I said, don't quit your job yet. And so finally at 2 a.m, we came to an agreement, which was essentially the same agreement that we had to begin with. But, they wanted to renegotiate it all over again. And I was really proud of my Fort Wayne lawyer. He had the New York lawyers on the run.
How many of you have actually been thinking about a backyard makeover? Do you wish you had room for a pool? Well, you're going to love this idea, and your family and friends, they're going to love it too. Get a Michael Phelps Swim Spa by Master Spas. A Michael Phelps Swim Spa combines the benefits of a pool with the therapy of a hot tub. It comes in a variety of sizes to complement almost any yard, even if it's a small backyard. Michael Phelps Swim Spas by Master Spas have a water current, so you can swim, do aquatic exercises, and have fun with the kids. This will reinvent family time. The water buoyancy will relieve pressure on aching joints, and you can enjoy pure relaxation in the massage therapy seats of the swim spa. And since it's heated, you can use it year-round in any climate. Michael Phelps Swim Spas are 100% made in the USA by Master Spas, the world's largest swim spa manufacturer. You're going to love your Michael Phelps Swim Spa by Master Spas. Go to masterspas.com, put in the promo code BIGIDEA to save $1,000 on a Michael Phelps Swim Spa or $500 on a Master Spas hot tub. That's masterspas.com, promo code BIGIDEA.
A lot of people don't realize that in the business world that those things happen. Those long-winded meetings and people on phones, and and back and forth, because at the end of the day, that this is what you want to accomplish, that's what they want to accomplish, and you obviously had a meeting of the minds and made it work. But that was obviously part of your vision at the moment well, I should say several moments, to have an equity group step in. You saw that as the way that you could grow the company, which is really the vision that you had, as I might know it.
Well, it wasn't, what I had was a friend who was a partner that invested money in this business. So we were exiting the equity group and going with, some shareholders that were long-term friends.
Right.
And, one of the things that really excited me about this, I had worked at a bunch of different companies, and I saw the culture in those companies, and I saw the things that were really great about some of the companies I worked for, and I saw the things that I would, change in a minute if I could. And so I had a blank sheet of paper, and I could build a company and the culture the way that I thought it should be built. And so that's what I set out to do. My game plan was to introduce a high-end line of spas, the Master Spa line. When we started the business, we only had home center business. So it was all low-end, 6-jet spas that's not going to make anybody happy. The person that buys it's probably not going to be happy. And so we start shipping the end of March to the home center stores because we had the tooling and we had all the things there. And I had gone and met with the buyers and put the deal together. But I was working on the tooling, and by the beginning of the summer, we had tooling for this Master Spa line. And the other key guy that came along at that time, there was a guy that worked for me at Fort Wayne Pools named Sam Badiak, who's now one of our senior vice presidents. And he had left because he could see, disaster was coming. So after I left, he left and went to another spa company. But he came back in April of 1996, and I hired him on. And he's a guy that has a lot of skills, including in the designing and overseeing of mold, the mold production. And the mold maker we used was in Canada. There wasn't really any mold guys in the United States. The ones that were used were all in Canada. And so he started, and by early June, we had built 6 master spas, and we did photography. We found photography places that we could take and set up the spas and got models. And we had an ad agency that we worked with somebody that I knew from before. And by August, we had a high-end brochure and high-end, all the tools that you would need. Now, we didn't have any customers, and we didn't have any, we didn't have any cash flow from that business, but that was the start. And I went along with Sam, we would go to cities across the United States. So I think we may have gone to 10 or 12 cities. We would rent a ballroom at a hotel. We would have 4 spas on a truck. We would bring them in, set them up, fill one with water, go put a suit on, and come down. And I would do a PowerPoint presentation, and we would invite dealers from that city. And every city that we went to, we ended up with 5 or 6 dealers there. And because competition, they're looking at each other and going, wow, I really like this line. I want that guy to get it. And so in every city that we went to, we set up a dealer. And so that's how we got going. And
when you focused on, because it sounds to me like from the get-go, your vision and your big idea, if you will, was to build the best hot tubs and swim spas in the world. And we'll get into that in a minute. But that was the baseline, right? Because that was what
we wanted to be, and we kind of built this product, kind of like when Lexus and Infiniti introduced their product in the early 90s. They were benchmarking other automobiles. They were looking at the Mercedes and said, they were saying, I want the rigidity of the Mercedes, and I want the lines of a Jaguar and I want the interior of a BMW or whatever. And they were looking at other cars and saying, how can we make them not only as good, but better? And that's what we wanted to do. And so we were benchmarking the few products that we really thought were high-end products and adding things that were unique and that were different from what they had. And so that gave us the opportunity because we knew that we were going to be sharing the floor with in every case because we were kind of a startup. And we had people knew who Fort Wayne Pools was. And so that was a little bit of cover for us as we talked about the product and how long we've been building spas and that sort of thing. But we knew that we had to have a product that was better so that it would sell through better against the competition that was on the same floor. And that's what happened. And so, it wasn't very long before we had dealers saying, I just want to carry your product line and nobody else. And now virtually all of our dealers just carry our products exclusively. It's because we have not only the best top of the line, but we have product all through from price points all the way up, and we have far and away the best swim spas.
What kind of goal did you set in that period of time when you were traveling the country setting up the dealers? Because it sounds like the reception was great, everybody loved it, and I can only imagine doing a PowerPoint to potential dealers.
Right.
And did those dealers come in one at a time? Did you have those set up?
No, we brought them all in, and we had our d'oeuvre set up and some beverages and things. And these dealers were sitting there looking at each other. And in some cases, they were friendly competitors. In other cases, they were sworn enemies. It was to our advantage because the product, we had high-end literature. The product looked fantastic. And the dealers were like, I really want this. Or in some cases, they're like, well, I don't really want my competitor to get it. And so, that's how we got the dealers to sign up. And, it was an interesting time to get these guys and, to be able to build that number of spas. But we wanted to transition completely from the home center business to 100% to the high-end luxury spa business.
Right. Take us, let's just go on that journey now where you were in this position and then you went into the Master Spas brand and you decided, because that's been the last 25 years, but I think, would that be the moment right there where circumstances took place and you said, because this is almost like a double vision, right? In a good way, that you've got that and then you hit this plateau and whatever the goal was. And then, let's talk about how Master Spas and the name and the brand was actually born outside of that foundation.
Well, the Master Spa name, it has a couple connotations. One is like a master craftsman, and the other was based on my Christian beliefs, where I have a Lord and Savior, a Master that I work for, and so that was one of the reasons that we named it Master Spas. And it's been a good name because it's easy to remember, and it's there's a connotation of quality there. And my original partner asked me. We were in a parking lot after one of our meetings before we had signed the deal, and he said, "Where do you think we could be in 5 years?" And I said, "I think we could do 20 million in sales." Now, we hadn't done the first dollar worth of sales, so that. To say we could do $20 million. And, we started with about 10 employees. There was there was Terry and I and a couple other people. And there was some people, there was, I think, 6 people from Fort Wayne Pools that were still working in the factory that we brought over at the current pay that they had. And we brought them over at the tenure that they had, their seniority there. And so, we had a room with 10 or 12 people as we were getting started, and we were ramping up, adding people for production. And the first year we did 5 million in sales, and that was 100% in the home center business. And it was a struggle to get there. And one of the home centers, and I won't name names, but they're a big guy, and they were so difficult to deal with. And they had our single lady, the one lady that we had in our order department, they had her in tears practically every day. They were just so.
Oh no.
And so I went in and told them, look, we're not going to sell you again, which I probably couldn't afford to do that. But I just was like, okay, we don't need this. And they didn't pay very well. They supposed to pay net 30, and they would stretch out the net, they would pay 90 days or longer sometimes. So it just was a difficult, difficult relationship. But within 5 years,
and that was nationwide, Bob. Those home centers.
We were selling them nationwide. Now, that was back in the early days of the big box stores, and so there wasn't the 4,000 stores that they have now. The two big guys have now. There was maybe 400 or 500 stores, and so they were just growing, and they were growing really quickly. They were going into markets and just destroying the little guys who were in those markets. It was like a bloodbath. And but we had one company, a smaller company that was a regional player, really good company, really quality. They had a bunch of stores in the Midwest and been around for a long time. And when Home Depot and Lowe's and those other big box stores moved into that market, within 6 months they were bankrupt. And I mean, it just was.
Oh wow!
It just was almost no time at all. And this company, who at that point was about 50% of our business, they went bankrupt, and we got stuck for $500,000. And if that had happened a year earlier, it probably would have put us out of business. And but in a way, it was like a blessing, because we were kind of hanging on to some home center business. It was kind of a security blanket. But when that happened, I was like, okay, I got to go out and get dealers. And so I went on the road, and our reps went on the road, and Sam went on the road, and from there we took off. And after that next year, I think it might have been 99, we grew 30% a year, every year for like 10 years. It was crazy. So
wow, that's huge growth.
Every 2.5 years, we were doubling the size.
Yeah. Did that sale, the big box sale,
right.
What did that look like? Was it physically they had a sample out that you go look at, or was it, because back then it really wasn't an aggressive online component?
No, there wasn't any online at all back then.
So was it just people could actually physically touch and feel?
We would send in to different stores. We might send in, in a smaller store, 3 spas, at a bigger store, 10 spas, and they would put it on an end cap. And sometimes they would have a big push, and we would come out and work some of their key stores because they didn't know anybody that knew anything about the spas.
Yeah. Well, I think it's genius because, and that's why I kind of wanted to ask that question, because if you look at that way of the consumer seeing the product and being able to touch and feel and see it, and then taking that model and saying, okay, now we're going to go to a dealer network where the product will be on display. And it was like, I think that was a genius move that you guys did that, because it put you obviously into a 30% growth pattern yearly. That's huge.
Warm water, massaging jets, backyard convenience. The relaxing hot tub experience you've been dreaming of could be just a click away. We're giving away a Master Spa's premium hot tub, energy efficient, innovative design, and made in the USA. Go to masterspas.com/big idea for a chance to win a Master Spas hot tub. Again, go to masterspas.com/big idea for your opportunity to live life the better way.
Getting the product into the dealer showrooms, that was really where the growth went, because like you said, the dealer back then, a dealer might have 5 or 10 spas on display. Now a lot of dealers will have 30 or 40 or 50 spas on display. It's completely different business, and it's grown so much. But having that growth, that was primarily Master Spa's growth, high-end, the high-end business. It not only, did our sales line grow because the product was a lot more expensive, so there was a much bigger gross dollar and gross margin on that product. And so it made us a lot more profitable. And so, by the time we got to year 5, we were about 25 million in sales. So I said, with my fingers crossed, I think we can do 20 million. At 5 years, we were at 25 million. And we continue to grow through there. And, there were some difficult times, like we weren't sure what was going to happen after 9/11. And when the stock market tanked in the end of 2008 and 2009, our industry went off a cliff. I mean, it was about a quarter of what we had done in 2006 and 2007. And yet we were still able to grow in those years because of the swim spas and because of how aggressive our dealers were. And so, I mean, they were tough years, but we were still able to make it work. And that in 2007, before the stock market crashed in 2008, there was about 100 spa manufacturers. And in 2009, by the middle of 2009, there was about 25 left. And so there's, there's 3 of us, 3 companies, like the big 3 in the auto, that account for, I don't know, probably 75% of hot tubs that are sold in North America. And, swim spas, we account for 40% of the swim spas sold in North America. So it's a big number, and we've got a big lead.
And this is a perfect time to segue into from where you went from 0 business to 25 million to where you are today with this growth and dealer network around the world. A lot of people don't realize that Master Spa is a worldwide presence. So let's take a look at that, and also, share that with us, and also what I think it would be really appealing to talk about what your factory looks like now and the employees and everything now versus where you were in 1996, because I think it's an incredible story.
Well, yeah, it's been a really amazing period of growth, and we're so grateful for the dealers we have, the team that we have to have this growth. And so right now we have about 1,500 employees. So we started out with less than 10, and now we have 1,500. The original building that we bought was just a little bit shy of 100,000 square feet on 13 acres. Now we have about 650,000 square feet on 45 acres. Most of that is all together. It's contiguous in the same. We've been fortunate. We've been able to buy buildings next door to us and across the street from us in the industrial park that we're in. And so we own most of that industrial park. And we do have a couple of buildings that are in a different industrial park, but they're one is a cover manufacturing operation, another is a warehouse for long-term storage. I mean, one of the things as a result of the supply chain issue, which is a whole nother story, we bought a 40,000 square foot warehouse just to inventory certain products that were tough to get, like fiberglass and pumps and things like that, that could completely shut us down if we weren't able to get them.
Yeah, it's just that snapshot is amazing, because for me, watching the brand and understanding it at this level is just continually amazing. I don't want to use that superlative too much, because I'm learning things as we go. But the fun part about this is, when you look at swim spas and Michael Phelps, the signature swim spas that you've got with Michael Phelps, that association, and not only that, I like what that's done for the impact on the industry, because a lot of people look to you as really the pioneer of the swim spa, from the ground up. And for those people that don't know what a swim spa is, I'll let you actually explain it. But I'd like to dig into that, because now you've got Michael Phelps, Olympic champions, gold medal gymnasts, triathletes, Ironmen, contribute to the integrity and hydrotherapy, which is a huge category right now.
Yep.
And then just kind of how you've migrated that and made that, because I think people want to know how you get that done. You know, like if I've got a product, endorsements and things like that. So I think it's nice to know, you know what I mean, that type of thing. There's you got a lot of integrity attached to the brand.
Yeah. Yeah. And we've been fortunate there. And Michael's been such a great partner. You know, he's really given us a lot of input on the product and how to make it better. But it's, you know, swim spas have been around for a long time, but it's been a really tiny niche market. And, you know, the swim spas, when I was at the distributor Mid-Atlantic back in the early 80s, we distributed some swim spas, and we sold like maybe 10 a year or something. And they were shells that would get set in the ground, and they would put big pumps on them, jets. And, you know, it was tough to swim against them, because it was really trying to, like, you're swimming against a fire hose. You're getting blasted by these jets. And when I was at Fort Wayne Pools, we developed a swim spa line and jets that gave a different flow to the water. So they were a big improvement on just the regular, you know, big nozzle jets that are like a fire hose. They were wider, and they gave you a different current, but still weren't the best for swimming. And for a good swimmer, they weren't powerful enough. But when we bought the spa division of Fort Wayne Pools, they had built the swim spas in another factory that had a bigger oven. And so the oven that we bought wasn't big enough to build a swim spa. So those molds got sent to a company up in Canada. And, but I always wanted to introduce a swim spa line. And as soon as we got to the point where we could afford to buy a 20-foot wide backform machine, which is about as big a machine as you can buy, that's on the market, we got the swim spa, a backform machine in, and we designed some molds. And I learned a lot of lessons from the other swim spa molds, because we had straight walls, but when you put that much water in it, it wants to bow the walls out. And so even you know, fiberglassing, you know, 4x4s or steel, you know, angle iron into them really couldn't keep them completely straight. But if you put some corrugation, you know, like in cardboard, it's just a corrugation of paper, and it just is up and down and up and down, and that adds strength. And so on plastic, if you give some curves in the walls, it gives strength. And same thing going down, we would go down and then be a little dip and then down again. And this made the swim spas extremely strong. We didn't need to glass any wood or any metal. So there's a lot of things we learned there. But the biggest thing was, I didn't want to have a swim spa like everybody else. I wanted to have a propulsion system that created a much cleaner flow of water, much wider, much deeper. And so we developed a propulsion system that used a propeller, similar to a boat propeller, but designed specifically for the flow of water in our swim spa. And that gave just a much better swim. The water was a lot clearer. It wasn't like you were getting, mugged by a fire hose in a riot. I mean, it was a much cleaner swim. And we had heard that Michael was interested in finding a swim spa to do training in, because it's difficult for his coach to see what his stroke looks like, because they'd have to run down alongside the pool side, to see that. And so we had some talks with them, and they said, well, why don't you put one of your swim spas at our training facility in Baltimore, which is where Michael trained then. And so we did that, and it was there for about 3 months. And I met with them again, and they were like, yeah, this is awesome, but it's not long enough, it's not deep enough, and it's not fast enough. And I was like, yeah, other than that, it's perfect, right?
Well, if you fast forward, because we've got a couple minutes left here, but if you fast forward, I mean, 25 years later, to the number one swim spa manufacturer in the world.
Yeah.
That's a big title. And what a lot of people don't realize about Master Spas is that as a company that were voted number one in marketing for the last 13 years.
Yep.
And it's like you're a marketing company that sells hot tubs.
Yeah.
But as we talk about that and the hot tub capacity, what I'd love to do right now is focus on something really special for our guests that we have. And one of the brands that you have under the Master Spas umbrella is the Clarity Balance line. And
Yep. It's a great therapy spa.
It's hydrotherapy at its best, yeah. And I know that it has the biomagnetic therapy. And across the country, that's pretty much a retail value right around $15,000.
Yep.
And we have instructions for everybody how to register to win. But I can't begin to thank you enough for this amazing opportunity, because this is I learned about the master word, and I know how dear that is to your heart. But just an incredible story, and thank you for sharing.
Thank you, Dr. Gadget. It was really an honor to be on.